If you're hating, then you're not creating. This lesson is very personal to me because, quite frankly, this is something I struggle with a lot. And even now, I really do struggle with it, which is over hating and not actually producing something myself. And I'll give you a specific example that's going on in my life. So I'm a very artistic person. I love art and I love specifically animation. I like it. And I make it. I make 3D animations. I'm a 3D animator. Um, but I also like looking at stuff online, not just animation. I like 2D stuff. I like fan art. I love all sorts of cool stuff. Over the years, I just developed a very bad habit, a very bad hobby, which is going out and intentionally seeking bad work. And this might sound very counterintuitive to you guys, especially if you're not in the art field, but the reason is for ego, and I'll explain. Well, the hard truth is that every artist is in some way or another insecure about their work. They see all the flaws and the mistakes and how it can be better over and over again. And it can definitely be very tough. That's why people fall into like artist block or analysis paralysis because it's a very tough and but it's very tough to make something really great. And you can apply this to any craft, really. Any kind of craft you can think of, writing, music, or any kind of trade, it's or sports, it's very tough. And it can definitely humbles you. 100% humbles you and will take a big hit to your ego. The problem is though, it's very easy to fall into the temptation of making fun of someone else or finding joy in knowing that you're better than someone else. Right? And just my search of finding inspiration or just enjoying looking at art online, you're going to come across people who are just not that good, or people who you just think uh, are just not skilled as you. Now, this could be either in the craft sense, like their technical skill, their execution, or their concept. Like the concept of what they're making. Like technically, it can be amazing, but what they're designing is complete garbage. And it's very easy to look at it and you kind of like laugh at it. It sounds really messed up, which it is. And to be fair, we all do it. Don't lie. We all do it in different ways. That's what the whole Instagram and TikTok. So many accounts are just about making fun of the cringy people, or it can just be covertly of just looking at your feed and seeing people just not doing as good, and it's a guilty pleasure. Now, there's a healthy amount of this, and I how I look at it is it's healthy if you're it's a being used as a vehicle to talk about an idea, not the end of it is just making fun of the person. Like, for example, if I see someone say on Facebook and they're wearing a ridiculous outfit, someone I know, right? I can show this to someone like, oh, look at them, kind of laugh at their ridiculous outfit. Now, if my end goal is just to laugh at the other person, demean them, and make fun of them, I think that's really unhealthy. It's like eating junk food, right? It's junk food for the mind, where it's very enjoyable doing it. You're having a lot of fun. You bond with the other person that you're sharing this with, but afterwards, you're not going to feel good about yourself because it's mean spirited, right? Especially if you're consider yourself a very nice person, it's not going to feel good. However, if you use it as a vehicle to talk about an idea about like, oh, see what they're wearing, like, see that shirt doesn't go with that pants, or their hair is not good that way. Like you're talking about the things, right? It's a vehicle to talk about the idea. Then I think it's healthy to an extent. And for years, I thought I was doing this with like the art I was finding online. However, over time, I started to realize that I've been doing this to mask what my own shortcomings, which every artist, every other, anyone who's creating content, that there's always gonna be shortcomings, and it's very easy just to get away from that struggle of making stuff and just have a laugh or have a small moment of like, oh man, at least I'm better than them. Right? For example, I'm making this video right now, and I have a screen going. I have a pretty good setup right now. I can look on YouTube and finding guys who, or even kids, who were literally getting 0 views and just filming with an iPhone, right? And it's terrible production quality. They're not talking about anything relevant, right? It's just stupid stuff. And I can laugh. Oh, at least I'm not good at them, right? At least I'm as better than them. I can just laugh at them and so on. But that's not helping me anyway, right? Unless I need that big of a pickup where I feel that bad of myself, it's not. Instead, I look at people on my subscription feed, people who are better than me. Who do I want to be like? What is their production quality? What kind of content are they making? I look at that like, wow, I want to get there. Not in a demoralizing way where I'm like, oh, like just always saying they're better than me. More so like this is the goal I want to get to. This is the standard I want to reach. So I think that's healthy. Um, but it's so easy to fall into like, you know, I see it on Instagram where I don't follow these people. I just go on and it's coming in my recommendations that these people who either even though they're again a lot of them are technically sound, but the content I just find garbage or repulsive or ridiculous, and I kind of just watch them like kind of smirking or hate watching it. Right. A good example, which I like, but I have a critique of is Jim Cornette. He has a podcast about pro wrestling, and if you know Jim Cornette, he was one of the all-time great managers. And part of his podcast, he talks about a wrestling promotion called AEW, which is just completely, it's objectively terrible. It's awful and it's just ridiculous. But on his podcast, like it's enjoyable for him just to tear it apart and all, but he makes so many videos about it, like over the years, where it is kind of grating, where it's like enough, right? It's like we all know it's bad, it's trash, and unless you're gonna use it to talk about some kind of idea about like storytelling or wrestling, whatever, like something more, then it's not. I find it kind of worthless. And occasionally it is fun to have those guilty pleasures, but you gotta look at yourself where why, if you hate something so much, why are you watching it? And the reason why is, like I said before, is mostly because of ego. It feels good to laugh at someone else. It feels good to, feel like you're better, especially at something that you're trying to strive for, right? Like if you're trying to become a hockey player, it might be fun to just try to look up videos of people, making mistakes, falling on the ice, and falling right on their butt, or missing shots. But that's not helping you. And if you do that too much, you become really cynical and you become arrogant because you start feeling better than you actually are. And when you go to actually practice, you're going to fall to the earth. And that's a hard ego. That's hard to hit. What is harder, though, what's very hard is to do the opposite of trying to keep a positive mindset where you see something not as good and you can objectively say what's wrong, but try to keep a positive mindset about it. Say positive things. And that unlike junk food, that's like the broccoli, where trying it right away, it's not going to taste good. Afterwards, it's going to make you feel more fulfilled. Like you're going to feel better about yourself. A good way to experiment with this is with gossip. You know, um, I talked about this in my uh, the squeaky wheel gets the grease video, where if you counter a group of people complaining about something, right? And it evolves not just about talking about a problem, but more so bashing something or someone without trying to fix the problem. And it's a very interesting experiment to go into that conversation. If you're involved with it or not beforehand, it doesn't matter. And trying to inject something positive, not overly where it's just jarring and seems disingenuous, but you give fair critiques, but also fair praise. That you say, like, yeah, they did this, but they're trying their best here, and you'll see the toxic, like just the nasty people are just gonna hate that. They're gonna be repulsed by that, right? Because you see they have a different motive. They're not trying to solve a problem. They're just trying to feel better about themselves. Now, when it comes to say art, when I'm talking about, like, you can look at one of my animations and say, like, oh, the timing's terrible, the voice acting's off, or any kind of the story doesn't make sense, any kind of criticism you have, right? And it's very easy for someone in the comment section just to throw that out there and don't think much about it. But what's a better mental exercise is if you those could be genuine criticisms and you talk about them, but then use it as a vehicle to talk about the idea. Well, why doesn't this work? How could it work in the future? How can you apply this to your work? That's so much more constructive. So much more, right? It's actually using that to actually get benefit out of it. I forget which Greek philosopher said this, but stupid people talk about people, moderately minded people talk about events, and smart people talk about ideas. Now, this isn't exact, because everyone talks about people, right? But it's more so the level. I like to think of it the level of the conversation. When you're just talking about a person, just talk about people. That's kind of just simple-minded stuff. Everyone can do that. Events is more you have to be more informed to talk about events. And finally, ideas. That's some of the best conversations I've had have always been conversations about ideas. The most productive, helpful, insightful conversations always about ideas. And that's something you should strive for. Not just with other people, but in your mind too. Just think about your mind. What are you thinking? What do you think about, and what kind of concepts are you developing or discovering? Right? So, next time you see like something that is kind of trash, right? Don't be so quick to just laugh at it. Even though it's easy and fun, try to really dissect it and see why don't you like it. And maybe even try to throw a little praise in there, because you'll feel better about yourself later. And this is not shaming like, oh, you should always be nice, right? Don't say anything if you don't have anything nice to say. Like stuff we've been told when we were kids, but that's all shaming, right? I'm coming at this as your benefit. Because at the end of the day, there's so many hateful and spiteful, resentful people that, it just chases everyone else away, that you become, no one wants to go near you because you're so negative. And eventually you're start getting negative yourself, where you'll become miserable. So, just try to consider, right, that you're hating, you're not creating. And just to wrap it up, like all this time you're hating on stuff, you're not producing. And I have a Substance with Style live stream I'll do in the future about Anton Ego from Ratatouille's speech, and I think that's a fantastic speech. Right, that even the biggest piece of trash, is probably more meaningful than the critique designating it so. Right, it's all my videos like they can be, someone can think they're terrible and all, but at the end of the day, I think content is much more important than any kind of critique. Critique is only supplementary. Content can exist on its own. Critique needs the content. So, start creating that content and be more cautious with hating on it. Thanks for watching.